Well, welcome everybody to our third broadcast and post-meeting reaction. Again, we're spread across the globe and we're welcoming from the USA, Greg Hancock, all the way from Australia, Darcy Ward, and joining us also from France is Matt Ford. So we're spanning the globe, guys. It's an ungodly hour here in the UK. End of the day up in the USA, and of course it's afternoon in Australia, and we're recording this for the benefit of anyone that realizes we're not actually live. Guys, first of all, we watched the meeting, and it was a little bit different to 2011 because we were back in form, we were in the dominant mood again, and the Pirates really, I have to say, probably did the job at Poole the week before.
Let Darcy take that one.
Yeah, okay. I watched the play and it brought back some memories of a solid year. I would say I was injured that year. Chris was injured. We had a lot of changes with the reserves, with Kyle in and out, Josh coming in, obviously Greg. So there was just a lot of things that happened that year. But when it come down to the finals versus Birmingham, who I thought, even during the year and towards the end there and rewatching, I didn't think they were probably the strongest team that we could have faced in the final at that time. They were a bit stronger throughout the year than towards the end. If I remember correctly, I think Swindon might have had a good crack that year, but somehow Birmingham got through in the semis. So, but yeah, when we got to the final, we were on fire. With me, Greg, and Magic. As the three heat leaders, we don't tend to lose races. So then we just rely on the rest of the guys to back us up. So yeah, we were really strong, and we'd done the job at home really in the first leg, and then going to Birmingham. I think they had 4 days of rain. I heard them say when I watched the rerun. So the track was pretty crazy. It was real patchy, real grippy, it's dangerous. But for us, it was just get it on. Like, we were pretty confident that we could beat them. So yeah, and for me to be able to captain the Pirates and go into that leg there, and I was the race that won the league. So for me to be able to be captain and do that, and to be captain such an icon as Greg was probably one of the best highlights of my career, to do that for Poole. So that was good.
Hey, you've done a pretty good meeting wrap there, Darcy. Guys, and I'll come to Greg next to bring you in and say that, thank goodness that you've done such a good job at Poole, and in particular credit to you and Darcy for the Poole leg, because I think it was 14 points from you, Greg. Darcy had a paid match in the first leg, so the power of the Pirates came through. But thank goodness, because when you got to the track and saw the conditions, clearly having that lead was the best thing that you could have.
Without a doubt, and I think that was my first go at Birmingham too. I hadn't raced there at all, so I remember just hearing stories about it. And then, like Darcy said, it was so much rain in between there, and when we walked the track before, like, man, it looked really patchy. But I just watching the replays of it and everything now, and seeing like Darcy said, it was a little patchy and tough to get around. But man, you went around the outside of Smolinski twice in heat one. Man, you didn't make it look bad at all.
Yeah, but I was watching it too, and the way you were riding in your first heat with Josh, and because corners 3 and 4 was like super grippy. And like the way you were getting off the throttle and the control you had was like, I was watching it today, it's going like that. That is not easy to do. So you were doing some good stuff too.
Dude, it's good times.
It's a masterclass from you two guys. Different ends of the spectrum, of course. And I've got to say, not the best night for you, Greg, but I mean, Darcy's explained there what you were doing on track. And as I say, you've done all the hard work. But normally, when you're riding at number 3, you'd get number 4 as your partner. But of course, we were riding rider replacement that night for Owen Tungate. So you were riding with the reserves. And I got to give credit to Josh, because you and Josh in your first one, Heat 3, I think it was. That was an awesome 5-1, and it set the team up very well. Points were hard to come by though on the night.
They were, and I mean, not to get off track on this whole thing, but from the moment that I came in to start riding for Poole, I hadn't been in the UK racing for a few years too, and I came in there and full of pride and full of steam and ready to do the job. And I struggled there in the first few matches, and remember pulling Matt aside, going, "Man, I understand if you just want to send me home right now, or if you want to cut my pay, because this is not what I came here to do, man." And of course, he was like, "Oh, come on, man, you'll get it, no worries."
Yeah.
Matt, I'll bring you in on that, because could you imagine sacking Greg Hancock? I mean, that would be just that would be headline news, wouldn't it?
It'd be like, when in football where the substitute comes on and then he gets substituted. That would just not be, to a legend. Imagine my name. It's bad enough anyway. Imagine then.
Well, you brought the subject up, Greg, and we'll talk about your actual arrival at Poole, because that's probably one of the biggest headlines of our
I thought you
chat.
meant Matt's bad name.
Greg, I'm going to ask you first, and then I'll call Matt as a rebuttal witness. But I'd be interested to know how he approached you, and did the call come out of the blue? I know you and Matt would have been talking anyway, I guess. You keep in contact, but tell us a little bit about how he approached you.
Yeah, I mean, I had conversations with Matt off and on over the years, and close to make deals with Poole in the past, but this one probably came at a good time. And the way Matt made the call and made the offer, and he said all the right things at the right time. And for me, there wasn't any better place to go in the UK at that time. I didn't really have any interest in riding over there, but the fact is to be in a team with Magic, who I was already, mentoring a little bit, and then coming in under Darcy, who I'd never ever been able to get teamed up with anywhere, except obviously we had our time in Sweden there too. But to go into that thing and be under a team that had, Matt was the kind of guy, I think the best way to look at it is he was going to make things happen. It didn't matter how many times people said, "There's no way you can do it." Matt was going to do it, and I thought, this is the place to be. And, I came in, I had equipment loaned to me from Chris and set to try while we were getting things worked out. And, man, it turned out to be one of the best times, one of the best years I could have asked for.
Matt, I'm going to ask you as well. Was he difficult to convince?
I think Greg had a little problem. That he was at Big Gosh, if I remember right, and there was an issue, I think, financially. And I can't remember how I heard about it. If it was one of the boys, maybe Chris or Darcy or Magic, because Magic lived with us at the time. And I can just remember hearing that there was an issue, and just this vague chance that he may be interested in doing something. And I mean, one of the things that will stick with me forever about this whole thing is that to get a rider like that to come in, clearly it's you're going to perhaps have to pay a little bit more than you would normally pay. And I can remember weighing up, because I think we had 7 matches and to go, and so I knew what the total figure was that I needed to take. And this is the best bit of business I think in my entire speedway career that I did ever, because in the first meeting he paid for those 7 meetings. So that was, I can remember that. I mean, you have some pretty crap times in speedway as well in the last few years, which have been tough to break even, and we've been, and it's been really, really hard. But going back, around the time the Chris Darcy era, which is such, and of course before that with Tony, those eras, and bringing Greg in gave us a, I'll go on to that further, but from a business sense, it was unbelievable. I just remember thinking to myself, right, this is how much it's going to cost us. This is going to cost me for a home match and for an away match. And of course, away matches, you don't actually take an income as such. And so it was a chance, and probably one of the best chances that I've ever taken in my life.
Darcy, did you have any input into all of this? Because I'm not sure whether you and Greg had been friends previously, or whether that friendship developed more.
No, I mean, I didn't have much input, but I was all on board for it. I mean, if Greg was coming to Poole, and if I don't really remember if Matt had said anything to me or anything, but I do remember before it happened, it was like, yeah, man, sign him up, get him coming. But yeah, of course, me and Greg were friends before that anyway. In 2013, I was in the Grand Prix, so and I was already in. I mean, I probably met Greg in the first year I come, and I remember just hitting it off with him because we're both similar and laid back, and you know, we're good friends now. But yeah, for the idea of Greg coming to Poole to race under me and obviously replace Chris, because Chris was a huge loss to the club and to the team. You know, we wanted to win that year, and with Magic we had a good team, and we had the reserves that were doing a good job, and Kyle with everything he was going. He had a good year that year.
Those guys were exceptional, man. All of them, huh?
So we were on a good roll, and then for Chris to get injured, it was like, what do we do? And then yeah, Greg's name pops up in the category, and it's like, is that really going to happen, or is that is that just talk? But get Greg there, and he come and done the job, and we had a pretty gnarly track there that year, and he helped out with the team, and we had a good year. It was a good year.
Matt, I know that you've got a silver tongue when it comes to talking to the riders and getting the best out of them and catching a good deal. Were you dangling that Elite League title in front of Greg at that time?
Matt don't pay good deals.
He talks the talk, though. He talks the talk.
Darcy's absolutely correct on that. I think I've said it before, and you know, I was so lucky in that era of having him and Chris, and they rode for the club. They rode for the club, not for the money. And I was so lucky to have such amazing talent that thank God they loved living on the South Coast. They loved living. Darcy was so at home with Midlow. Chris had obviously, Max had come along just about that. But I think Max was probably one or two at that point. And, so there were so many things. They loved their jet skiing. They loved David Adams and Wessex Marine and the things they were doing there. And it was just one of those. I don't know how it's happened, but we've been really lucky over the years to get a lot of really, really top guys. The three there that we mentioned, in Greg, Darcy, Chris, Magic, Crumpy, Lee Adams, and then the biggest of all time, Tony Rickardson. I mean, it's been an amazing 2 decades for the Pirates and the Pirates fans. I remember as being a kid and going to Poole Speedway in the 70s when I first got into the sport, first started going, very early 70s. We were dreadful. If we could win at home, it was a bonus. And there was no signs of titles when I was going. And it took nearly 25 years before we won our first, 1994. Or it was our second title. We won it in 69, but I first went to a meeting in 70. And they came along like buses, didn't they? As soon as we got those guys in, they were, we couldn't do an awful lot wrong.
Absolutely. Well, you say that, but actually in 2013, it was new territory as far as your promotion was concerned, because you were bottom of the league, and almost without a hope. I mean, I can remember going into the office and you saying, "No, we're not going. We're not going to be there this year." But everybody kept the faith in the end, and sure enough, it paid off. And one of the tragedies, I think, was Darcy was injured early on, and I think, if I'm right, it was the meeting when Darcy came back that Chris got injured. I think that was the only meeting.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there was any earlier on, but it was one of the only meetings they did together.
D-Dub, I don't know if you remember that.
No, I don't. I don't remember. I know I was out.
You'd been injured.
I don't remember. I remember the meeting and the crash with Chris, but I don't remember if we did it together or anything. It doesn't recall me.
I have a feeling that was the case. Greg, you came into this, and obviously the Pirates had started to get going by then. So the title and your first Elite League title was very much on the agenda, and that was what it was all about. It was going for that title, and you were able to help make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, Matt threw that one on me in our first phone call in the negotiations too. When he caught me at a really good time, I was so vulnerable, and he threw that league title at me, and he kept reminding me of it all the time. But I just remember, I mean, Matt's got such an incredible record, right, of pulling things out of the hat, and you know, when the chips were down, being in the bottom of the league, and people kind of almost like writing him off, and then no way, you know, they're going to win this, right? It's just it's insane. So you looked at it, and then coming there, and from the moment you walked, you know, that I came into the country the first time, walked into the pits, and you got the whole vibe of the welcoming first from D-Dub and the whole crew there, and Midlow being the team manager. Like, it was the most cool, relaxing, yet adrenaline rush that, like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be so much fun. And
I remember that first night, and I mean, we opened the pits at Poole when the gates open at 6:30, and we have them open until 7 o'clock. And I just remember that night, the pits was nearly as full as the grandstand. It was like a mass of people. And I think everyone had their autograph books out. I think you probably, I don't know how you managed to survive that night, because you must have signed 1 million autographs.
Well, you know, it gets, I tend to sign a few anyway. You know, I have a hard time walking away from people, but, you know, it's just me.
Do that. So we know that about you, Greg, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, D-Dub says that you know, you and he are the same, and that you were pleased that people got to like you, but that's your trademark. Still the most popular guy in Speedway, Greg.
Well, hey, you know, it's, you know, I was a kid once, and I know what it was like just to get that autograph, but it's always hard when there's always that one more little kid standing there going, just one more, just one more. And how many times did you sign just one more every night you were at the races, right? And there's one more kid hanging there, and I would feel guilty going home thinking, I didn't sign that last little kid's autograph. That'd be terrible.
It's a lovely thing, Greg. So, I mean, Darcy, to be captain of the team at that time and to lift the trophy, that's the biggest honour of all, I guess.
Yeah, it was huge, and I was, you know, through unfortunate, I got the captaincy through Chris, but which led to me being captain for longer than just 2013. But yeah, no, to be the captain and to win the Elite League and lift the trophy is an honour, of course. You know, I never, with Chris always being a Poole, I probably didn't really predict myself being captain. But it fell into my hands through his injury, and then, yeah, like I said, for me to be able to, it was not only that to captain the team, but for me the big honour was that Greg rode under me, which was obviously, you know, Greg being Greg, that was huge to me to be a part of that, and for him to be a part of my team in a way, I guess. But yeah.
Riding the second leg, and I'll bring Matt in again, riding the second leg away, probably not ideal, although under the circumstances and the weather, probably worked out in our favour to some degree. You would always choose, I would imagine, that year we didn't get the chance to choose because we weren't top of the league, Birmingham were. So I would imagine you'd always choose to ride the second leg at your home track. But I know that you always consult the riders, and the riders will decide. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, that is right. You know, we'd always call the boys in. Darcy would have done it several times that we would have called them into the office. Normally, because if we were at home and or we'd have had a call or a WhatsApp message group that we would all put our thoughts into. I would normally tell the lads what I would have thought, and then they would just come back with if I was right or wrong. So, and you know, it's funny, Nigel. You say a couple of things there. One about, you know, the autograph book, and I look at the screen and want to get mine out. You know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? When you talk to these guys, and my biggest regret would be in Speedway is because obviously at this point in time Britain doesn't have this type of talent. You know, it's great that Nicky's come back, and Doyley being with us still is fantastic. I think that, you know, hats off to Doyley. He's been great staying on board. And you know, but you see these guys and think that just a few years ago, you know, these guys were representing the Pirates in the Elite League at the time, and it's such a shame just seeing, you know, the fact that many of the top guys now are choosing not to ride the UK, because it's still a great place to come and learn your trade. But and one story I tell about Greg is I've got a couple, but this is one that will always stay with me, and that's that I can remember him saying to me, because we brought him in and we actually got beat. I think we got beat at home, and I was saying, look, if we can win this one, get 3 points there, I think that they're going to lose that match and that will knock them down, and then if we can win that one and go away and win this one, and I remember Greg saying to me, "Do you ever give up? Do you ever give up?" Like I'll never forget him just saying to me, "God, man, you just never give up, do you?" You know, and it was really strange because we kind of didn't make it easy on ourselves when Greg came. We didn't hit the ground running and suddenly start winning everything. I think we actually underachieved a couple of times, but you just knew that, as Greg mentioned, about him being, you know, Magic's mentor at the time. So I knew that it would bring more out of Magic. And I think that was the turning point, in my opinion, in Magic's career, because as hard as Poole was to ride as a track, and it was, Darcy and Chris, Davies, all last week were on the 2011 victory, was saying about how tough it was to ride. It's amazing how many riders have come from that club, have gone on to become world class. Jason Doyle as well. Darcy was always going to get there. Chris always had it in the bag. You know, of course, Greg was already the finish item, being world champion as well at that point. I can't remember if it's once or twice, but it is a tough track to ride. It's a real speeder rider's track to ride. I remember Tony, when he came, he said to me, he hated the track, but by the time he left it, it was absolutely one of his favourites, because he learnt so much in riding it. And when you get someone of that ilk say something like that about your track, I know it's tough. I know it can be bumpy. I know it can be grippy. It can be, you know, but it's amazing how many of these guys, you know, people like Bjarne Pedersen, who went on to become an excellent rider for donkey's years, you know, learned his trade around there. And I think dealing with those types of conditions at times can help.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, well, Matt, that Chris was the 2012 champion. So throughout 2013, he was the reigning world champion.
Well, I'll give you another stat. And if you look at Greg, was not having the best GP campaign, I think, that year. And I'm sure from the point that he joined Poole, he had a few more GPs, and if you'd taken the points from those GPs, he would have been world champion.
Things turned around good that year.
Yeah, he really hit some major form in the GPs, and you know, and the club bounces off the back of that as well, doesn't it? When these guys are doing brilliantly in the internationally, the club benefits as well, because it gets some great publicity. So, but with Greg, you know, his friendship with Magic already, but he also had an awful lot of respect and good rapport with both Chris and Darcy. And there was, you just had this feeling that with those names around you, how on earth could you not win? How could you not win?
Exactly, right.
I'd stick D-Dub in his wheelchair out there and still feel with winning. You know, it is something radical about these guys that are so different, and that's what made them such absolute, legends of our sport.
Darcy, I'll come to you and just say that the Pirates always seem to prevail. I know a couple of times it went south, but the Pirates always did something special when it came to playoff time. You could never discount the Pirates at playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of things you could touch on of what we've just been going through of why, that sort of happens, I guess. Matt needs to take a lot of credit too, really, the club and the whole package of, he was saying, like, living down on the South Coast and, even Matt didn't pay the highest, but for some reason everybody wanted to ride there. It was just a good vibe with Midlow being Midlow, and hanging out as a team afterwards. Is something that most places weren't doing at the time. I guess I'm not sure what they're doing now, but just the whole package, I think, is what always got us further than maybe sometimes we should have gone. And to be able to bounce back from the bottom of the league this year, it was just the package of what the club brings. With the fans, we normally have, the biggest crowds and the biggest fans, and always got that base. So it's a whole package of, and just, people want to ride at Poole. So we've normally got good riders, or at least got, if there's an available spot when the reserve ones come in, we can normally get a rider that just wants to come to Poole. And that year we had Thomas as well, which he only came to England to ride for Poole, really, and there was a lot of riders like that. Dennis Anderson only wanted to come ride for Poole. I don't even know who else. Milik in my time also, each wanted to come ride for Poole. The Pavlicki just wanted to come ride for Poole. So there was always something that the club and Matt and the fans and Midlow provided as a package that, would bring out the best in everybody. And even going back to the track was tough. My first year riding the Poole track was a struggle. I had a lot of crashes, and just was not quick. I went back to reserve. I struggled at home. I did better away. But then once you got to know the track and you got to know the bumps of where they are, it was a good track because no one else liked it. So it was a good shape to a good shape and good material and good atmosphere to better your skills on a speedway bike. And when I come back in 2015 and rode for Swindon, I got smoked. Chris and Magic's every race. I just remember leaving there going, like, that was so hard. Like, it was, I didn't know what, I was confused. Like, it was just so hard. I'd done the track for so many years. I just assumed that I was going to be scoring some points and probably beating Magic or Chris, but the track turned out to be a lot tougher to ride away than home. So that again, that also brings into the package the track. With all of it, it's just a good combination, and I guess everyone deserves credit in their own right for why it is what it is.
Greg, I'm going to pick up on a couple of things that Darcy said. And one of them was actually about the team spirit and having people get together. I think when you were here in the Poole riding for the Pirates, you stayed with Matt, and I think Magic was there at the same time. So immediately that kind of created a nucleus. And I think, Matt, maybe you probably take credit as well for the fact that you have put up your riders over the period of time since you had the place in Broadstone. That would be a base where everybody could congregate. It was almost a social centre, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'll let Greg take over on this one because, people want to hear those two speak. But one of the things that Greg had this little room, not a little room, it's a nice sized room, but there was no natural light in there. And and I
It's
can
like a
always
cave.
remember.
That wasn't the bath. That wasn't the bathroom, was it?
I slept like a baby. It was like a cave. I was like a bear.
It was a cave. We went on to have a better man cave afterwards. Greg built this amazing bar, but I can remember Greg coming this one week, and of course Chris was injured, and I can remember we just, I don't know if you can remember this, Greg.
I do. I know where you're going.
Greg had gone to bed because he had an early start the next morning, and he had
This is classic.
a continental meeting. I can't remember where he was off to, but probably Poland. And so he had an early start, and Chris came back to the house and was feeling up for a party. And I can remember Chris saying to me, "Nah, we're not letting him sleep. We're not letting him sleep."
Yeah.
Nah. And Chris went down and dive bombed him. He was
jumped in bed with me.
And with JD's, he took 2 glasses down and he dive bombed Greg, and with his JD, he said, "Here you go, bro." And Greg, literally, this is what was so unique about Greg Hancock. Got up and spoke to us idiots for 2 hours. You know, when we would just want to party, having won a meeting, and Greg was instrumental in winning the meeting. He got up and just his tolerance level with people is insane.
I didn't have any choice, man.
Not with Holder. It was Holder more than.
Not with Holder. I was there, but it was entertaining because he gave me the biggest education about David Grohl from the Foo Fighters. Exactly. It was. I mean, I'll never forget that he was going off all night, and it was like I was shocked at his knowledge of that guy, and I was like, dang, he just kept firing all this stuff. So at that 2 hours, we had a blast, man. It was, there was just no regrets. I was loving every minute of it.
Chris is good with his music.
He's good. He's really good, and we still occasionally have a few moments of text or something where a specific lyric or something or a specific band that I'll fire over to him. We have a giggle about it, so it's pretty cool.
Greg, I'll pick up on the other thing that Darcy was saying about the track, and I mean, you hadn't been in the UK, I think, for 7 years. You'd previously been with Reading and then back into Poole. Was your expectation, or how was the expectation when you came to Poole, having not seen it for 7 years? And was that making it difficult because it had changed a lot?
Yeah, I think the not racing there and kind of in my head, I had it rehearsed it. I'm going to be fine. Everything's going to be cool. I got it down. I'm with the right group of guys. And then I listened to Magic and talking to these guys, around the other circuits and stuff, and them telling me about the track. And I used to watch a lot of the races on Sky back then too, and keep up whenever I could on the Monday nights. That was fun, And but I remember suddenly the experienced guy who's kind of been there, done it all, was turning to the kid that he mentored and to the dude who was captain of the team, who I'm, and going, guys, I need help, man. What are you guys doing? How do you make this work? And so that the track was so different. Like Darcy said, there were specific bumps on the track that a lot of guys they couldn't figure it out. And when you're a home rider, you got the knowledge from D-Dub and Chris, Chris telling me too, but Magic and saying, listen, just do this and do that when you go into the corner and you'll be good. And once you figured that out, it was like, oh, right. Okay, I got this. And just trusting it and working with the bumps rather than racing against them.
Absolutely. I mean, you did figure it out in the end, and clearly, because in the first leg, you had great meeting, 14 points, which carried that lead over. I'm going to be a little bit selfish because we don't get the opportunity to speak to Greg too often, and it's lovely to have you here. So thanks for taking the time. And I know it's late at night for you, Greg, but I just wanted to talk a little bit again about the career. And 25 years in the Grand Prix is just an outstanding record, unbelievable. And what's significant for me about your career was that you were a world champion in '97, and then I think you took 14 years to win it for a second time. I mean, who's done that? Nobody would do that. How was your mindset during that time, and what happened? Because after that 14-year gap, suddenly you were back at the top dominant. And how did things change?
Man, whatever was going on in that 14 years, my mindset was definitely not on winning the world championship, but because I was just a guy in there, and I was there a lot of the time and close and second and third, and had the occasional off year and being 6 or 8 or something, and just going like, I mean, I had a couple of moments where I thought, oh, maybe I'm just not meant to win it again. Maybe this is it. This is me, and I just got to settle for it. I mean, even telling my wife that I think I'm over this, it's just not happening. And then a couple of things changed, and as Darcy and I had a really cool Instagram live the other day, and it came down to some chassis work that we worked with. And the first moment, as I said to Dita, when I rode this thing, I was like, wow. I told my mechanics I could win the world championship on this, and they just looked at me like I was a goof, and I'm like, I'm serious. And literally from that moment, things turned around, and yeah, I mean, I never thought I would win another 3 titles after that, but it went really, really well.
I guess in the UK, I mean, and Sweden and Poland, you're quite the celebrity. People will recognize you, but home in California, is that so there? Because I'm guessing that the sport is not so well presented. It's much more insular.
Yeah, it's here in the U.S. It's Speedway is virtually non-existent for a lot of people, sadly. But I have to honestly say that through in more recent years, that with Monster's involvement in the sport, it has really, really helped to raise the awareness of the sport overall. And they add a lot to the program, because they bring in a lot of athletes that they're involved with to come to the races, and they make people know that they're there. So the sport is overshadowed, but I mean, we got football and basketball and baseball and NASCAR and Indy and all that kind of stuff. It's so much going on. So Speedway has a hard time surviving, but there's a lot of talk about what they want to do to grow it. And for me, I'm just a normal guy when I come home, and to the Speedway people, I'm still that guy who goes pretty good once in a while, but otherwise I'm just Greg from the block.
Darcy, you got to ride in the States. I think you had an invitation to the Monster deal.
Yeah, that was that might have been after the 2013 season.
Yeah,
after it was after.
You could be right.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to see if we
I
have
think it was.
I have one of the things up here from that. I can't remember. I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think it was 13. Yeah.
That year he was in Australia when I went to America. So yeah, 2013. Coincidentally, but that was a good experience. And like Greg was saying, the only reason that happened for me to go over there was because it was called the Monster Energy Invitational. So that was a good meeting. And for me to be able to see Monster and Greg and his whole setup and do something good for the sport and ride at the Monster Invitational, which was smaller than Lakeside. Look, it's in a shed. It was good. It was good. It was good. The fans were good. It was a packed house. I mean, it was pretty special. It's only a small little track, but we had a couple of good battles. Actually, I wiped out the local hot shot in the final. I took him out, trying to make a desperate move, but I didn't go there to get second. So had to make a bloody men's of it. But that was good. Obviously going to Greg's house while being in America and being part of his family and all that kind of stuff was also a memory I'll never forget with my old boy.
That was awesome.
You two guys have become such great friends, and that sort of it exists between the three of you, and some of that harks back to the GPs and some of it to Greg's time at Poole as well, I guess.
Yeah, and Greg spoke earlier, but we raced in Sweden. I think Sweden would be our closest. You know, we rode in Sweden together for three years, I think.
Yeah.
So you know, we were always traveling there, and although Greg lived in Sweden, but just being around, you know, us Speedway riders, we're all traveling everywhere, and you know, we don't mind after Sweden matches or afterwards in Poland, we don't mind going to the hotel and just relaxing and having a couple of beers, and we all chat. So like the Speedway scene is quite friendly, but then obviously the whole cool thing with Greg was when you know, we become a lot closer because, you know, he is traveling to Poole, which was where I live, so we got to hang out a lot more with Matt being Matt, and getting the team together. So
there was a lot of good nights there. I mean, obviously being at Matt's there and being involved in Poole, the relationships that I gained with like Gordon Pearman, who became not just a friend but a sponsor and kind of a mentor in other ways. He's really helped to guide me in different things and that I've been doing, you know. And then, you know, being around Midlow all the time, and then meeting David from Wessex Marine, who I still haven't got a chance to go ride jet skis like you guys always did. But someday he's like, you just tell me when, I'll be there. So I met so many great people from the Poole area, and you know, thanks to Matt again for opening that door. And you know, I mean, it's one of the best places in the UK that I can say I've honestly been. And I would never think, if I wanted to go race in the UK again now, I would obviously go look at Poole and look at setting up a base somewhere there, because it's, you know, you're close to the sea. The people are cool. The Speedway's awesome. I mean, and that's the honest truth. I've been to some great places in the UK and rode for some awesome teams, but I really, really enjoyed my time at Poole.
I always describe Poole as being the California of UK.
Pretty much.
Yeah. For fans, I think we probably all have one of the greatest memories of you two on track is that GP race. And I think there was Golub in there, and I can't remember who the fourth rider was. It was Bomber. Just that incredible race where you were swapping positions. And as fans, we remember that. As riders, do you remember that? Do you watch it back?
Oh, yeah. You know, I mean, it seems like right now, too, a lot of these epic races start to pop back up here and again. And I seem to see more stuff at D-Dub regular, man. The amount of things that pop up on social media, it's awesome. And and every time I know what race it is and I know what's going to happen and everything, but I never stop watching it. I'm like, I've seen it so many times, but I still am glued to the screen when it comes on, because you're just like, that is so D-Dub. That is just like, that dude, if there was no lines left on the track, he just made one.
Yeah, well, we spoke about that the last one, Nigel, and I think I've spoken about it with Greg, but obviously that was my debut, and to be racing in that category against Greg and Golub, and at that time Greg was world champion that year, and Golub was the champion the year before, and Golub was so good at Torren. Like he the year before, I think he got a 7 race max. I think when he won the world title, he got a max at Torren. So that's just, I don't know. That was great, but that was my home track too. So obviously I knew the lines and been riding there for a couple of years. To my credit, but yeah, that was a good race. I don't remember.
One of the greatest races ever, I think, from our point of view.
It was awesome.
Now, Greg, I mean, we've seen the situation, and I know you're in a self-imposed retirement, and perhaps it is a good opportunity just to say, how are things at home with the family?
Things are, you know what, thankfully things are really good right now, and my wife's doing very well. She's made it through all her treatment and still has a couple of surgeries to go through, but obviously under the circumstances right now, that stuff's all been postponed. So, but health-wise, she's cancer-free at this time, and she has no future therapies of anything like that she's got to do. It's just follow-up stuff now, and then a couple surgeries that need to be done. But you know what, she's past the worst of all this stuff, and we really hope that we never have to go there again.
Absolutely. Well, you've shared that, and we all, support you. And what a wonderful thing for you to have done. You put your career on hold, and we've seen the situation now with Crumpy making a comeback. Is that something that we could ever see with yourself?
Well, I wouldn't say that that's on the cards right now. And what is it? 7 years since Crumpy retired, and
yeah.
I never thought that we would see this return. But the more that I've watched and listened, and then obviously talked with Darcy the other day on our Insta Live thing, and hearing that story behind it, you're like, I can see the desire that he's got, and if anything, this is going to be a huge benefit for Ipswich. It's going to be massive for British Speedway, and because he still has a lot to offer. I'm sure of that, and he's probably going to have his ups and downs like we all do, but the guy's a racer, right? He doesn't want to lose, so he's either going to figure it out or he's going to go, no, this didn't work, I'm out of
here. Well, I hope it's the former for everyone's sake.
I think Jason will figure it out, and Ipswich, the juniors, the whole club, they are going to benefit massively from it. I hope the season can run,
And what about the situation with Will? Wilbur is starting to show some. He's cropping up now in social media, and I know you did one of your Real 45 podcasts about his development. Is that going to be ongoing? Are you going to put more energy into looking after Wilbur?
I give him as much as I can. I mean, like you said, you see him on social media. He does a pretty good job on his own, man. And as long as he keeps coming back to ask me questions, I'm pretty happy, because right now he wants to do this on his own. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to live under Greg Hancock's son. He wants to be Wilbur and make a name for himself. And I encourage that constantly. So I always take a step back, and he's got another kid, Jake Isaac, who just retired from racing and who's still really young and is going to, Supercross mechanic school here in the U.S. And he's going to take over and wrench for Wilbur all year this year. And who knows, they might go on and do something big between them. But the kids, he loves Speedway, man. So I think he's going to be around for a while.
And Darcy, you were telling us last week that you were planning to get more involved again and get stuck in. I know that you live quite close to Ryan Sullivan, or you did do. And is Watty close to you?
An hour.
Yeah. Well, in Australia terms, that's neighbours.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm obviously got some plans to help the kids out here with Watty. We've been talking, but obviously it's been on hold lately because of what's going on, and we're not sure when the clubs are going to be opening back up and when things are going to be right. And when the clubs do open up back here, they've got so much to catch up on with their title meetings and dirt track and local meetings. So we will have to play it by ear. But we got some good plans to help the kids and that, and do some development days. And then obviously I've got my meetings here in Australia that I've been doing or trying to do with a rain off that we've had, but we got here in November with the Invitational, with the 3 Polish boys. So we just trying to get bigger and better, and the sport here is not bad when it comes to all the top boys. When they come home from the season, the sport really thrives, and it goes quite well, to be honest. But as soon as they leave, it's sort of forgotten about, and there's not much really that happens, and all the local riders who are our future are sort of forgotten about. So we'll see what we can do with helping them and trying to get them riding more and trying to get kids involved more. And you were just talking about Greg coming out of retirement. Well, we'll see if we can get him here riding in Australia for my meeting one year. We already spoke about it, and I've been grassing him up. But, Chris is already on me, and he already knows, and we'll get Wilbur out here and stuff like that. So who knows? Who knows if Greg can come back?
I had that thought. I wondered whether that might be the case. Greg, are you keeping your hand in with whatever activity is happening in the States? Are you able to? Is there much action? Costa Mesa isn't far from you, I guess.
No, it's like half a mile from my house, where that track is. We're pretty close there, but obviously everything's been shut down for quite some time. But they opened up the tracks this last week. Not Costa Mesa, because that one you can never practice there anyway. It's only a what do you say, a race event organization. But we go out to Paris, which is about an hour's drive from here too, and it's a really nice little oval. It's probably a little bit smaller than Lakeside, but it's pretty wide, really fun to ride on. And I still ride a lot, and I'm still out there, and I've still been testing some stuff that I wasn't done with, in my racing stuff, and hope to be able to utilize that with some other guys in the future. But after talking with Darcy, and I'm surprised that there aren't more guys that haven't tried to coax this guy into doing something with him, because his knowledge, and what he was doing before his career came to an end. The dude's got a lot. He's got a lot going on there, and I would really like to see somebody be able to get a hold of some of his great knowledge and be able to use it, or at least a network of some kind, because he's pretty insane, man.
Well, I remember you saying that when you were at Poole, you used to enjoy, like I said last week, other people used to come and enjoy watching him do his stuff, because it was pretty special times, things that we'll never forget. Something that occurred to me, actually, and I'll just throw it out there. If this was Hollywood, you two guys at the opposite end of the spectrum, the young pretender and the experienced guy, you'd be cast as bitter enemies. But nothing could be further from the truth. You guys have just, you've taken each other to heart, and the respect between you both. You with your experience, Greg, respecting what Darcy's done, and Darcy's respect for everything that's gone before, is amazing.
Thank you.
Darcy?
Yeah, well, we've got loads of respect. For me, I have not done what he's done, so I might have been a bit of a showman and a bit loose on the bike, but I didn't accomplish anything that I had yet set out to do, and that doesn't cut off anything that Greg's done. Obviously, I was chasing everything that he'd done, so that was, my goals were to be something like Greg. So so he was my idol in a way.
I'm going to bring Matt back in because he's been sat there quietly for a minute or two. Do you wish that Greg had come back at some point? Would you like to have seen him return the following year? Or I know in the end it's a numbers game, but I'm sure you would have loved to have had Greg back at Wimborne Road.
Well, it's funny because it's been lovely to just sit and listen to the two guys having, banter and talking about things. And it brought up two stories. One is that Darcy and myself and Chris were really keen to take a Poole Pirate team to Australia, and then Darcy's accident happened, and that's something I would still love to. I was talking to different promoters in Australia, Dave Parker, in particular at Gilman, Darcy. Yeah, and then there are a couple others that I contacted. Some didn't respond. But I kind of put a deal to them saying what we would need to come. But it would have been, to my knowledge, the first ever visiting British team. You've had, of course, the Lions and England and etc. themselves go over, but never an actual domestic team. And of course, around that time, with the fact that Magic was also with us, Josh, Grzonek, Chris, Darcy. And we had a few other Aussies as well, but it wasn't far off for Brady coming into the team, and so it would have kind of worked out nicely that we could have done something, and that's something I definitely would like to go back to and revisit and see if we could do something and bring a Pirates team out because we've got a really, really great following there, and I think a lot of that was down to Chris and Darcy that most of the guys there tell you that they're walking around when the Grand Prix was on were in Poole Pirate shirts. We're in Poole Pirate shirts because of these guys and what heroes they'd become on Sky. But one thing I want to say to Greg is that it is a regret that that I think it's a regret, in my opinion, for the whole of European Speedway if it gets left like this. You know, you've meant so much to so many people, and your reasons for putting out the sport were totally the correct ones to do it, and certainly at that point in time, and you know, you're a hero to us all for doing what you've done there. But I would actually like to say to you, how about here? I'll chuck this one in, Greg. How about that you come back and ride, and the maximum average you can be on is at 12. And I know that for sure because there was good chance that Crumpy may have been coming into the league that we're in now. And so I don't think it matters about the league. It's irrelevant about the league. I think what people would love to see is Greg Hancock one or two more times in the UK. But what I would say is how about you come in and ride just a couple of matches for Poole, and then have a farewell from British.
Love you, Matt.
So you get a proper payday to finish a career off that started in the UK, and that's where it should be finished. It should be finished. So I appreciate the monies were better in Poland and lesserly in Sweden, but that you come and have one final big payday, potentially the biggest of your career, I'd imagine, and finish at Poole, and that we get all of the Coventry Bees fans and Jeff Davies that does the photographer, superb photographer that supplies these guys with shots, who's a quite wonderful man and fighting the cause along with others to try to get Coventry Bees back on track. Something as much as the rivalry that the two clubs have had over the years that I would be desperate to see happen. But Greg, what's your thoughts? Maybe come in this year, next year, couple of matches for the Pirates.
I'm flying over.
You gotta love Matt.
I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to answer, Greg, because we're getting close on time. So
I think my battery's going dead, you guys.
I'm going to kind of let you off the hook. But yeah, a quick answer, Greg, before we close up.
Well, you know, Matt, I always tell everybody never say never, and I would have gladly expected, or I should say, I would have honestly expected you to say something like this because you're awesome. And
yeah, well, it's Matt.
Thanks, man.
It was awesome, right? And you never know, but right now we're gonna leave it like it is, and we'll see where we go.
Greg Hancock, from Speedway to politics in one very smooth move. Guys, I'm so grateful for you for giving up your time. Greg, I know it's late for you and your bed must be calling. Darcy, you've got the evening to come, and well, me and Matt, we've got a whole day ahead of us. Guys, thanks ever so much for joining us. Again, it's been fantastic, and it's been my privilege to be here with some of the great names. Just fantastic. Up the Pirates, as we always say. Stay safe, and let's hope that we can all see each other soon and not be 6 feet apart.
Hey, let's all keep in touch. And I'm the worst. I'm the worst since I've been out here. I'm dreadful for keeping in touch with people. You know, head down and balls up type of thing attitude. I've been just stuck into this job, but you know, love you guys. Darcy, I really miss you, mate. I really miss you so much. So, you know, you take it easy and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks again, you guys. And Matt, like I say, we might not hear from you or speak to you. You probably don't hear from us equally the same, but when we speak, man, it's like we talk every day. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a pirate. And I'm sure we'll see each other again really soon.
Hey, Greg, that 15 pound medal that you've got for winning the championship is brilliant, isn't it?
It's awesome. It's really awesome. And I owe it all to you.